straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship and to go before him unto the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into a mountain apart to pray. And when the evening was come, he was there alone. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. And in the fourth watch of the night Jesus went unto them, walking on the sea.
Blessings and salutations to you. I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me in this 5-part series entitled Life Tips from the Ship. Today, we will go over Life Tip from the Ship Part 1. The entire series is taken from Matthew 14th chapter, verses 22 through 33. Today, Part 1 will be taken from verses 22 through 25. Now, I hope that you are familiar with this text, this story, and where it comes from. It's taken from that story about Jesus and Peter walking on the water. I hope that's a story you're familiar with. So I'm not really going to embellish on that or elaborate on that, but within the confines of the text, there are some life tips that we can gather. There are some valuable and encouraging words that we can gather from this story. So without further ado, let me begin with part 1 of Life Tips from the Ship. It begins with Jesus. Jesus standing on the shore side, and he sends his disciples away. As a matter of fact, in verse 22, it says, "In straightway, Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship and to go before him unto the other side, while he sent the multitudes away." He tells his disciples, makes his disciples, commands his disciples. In other words, he doesn't give them any option. The only option is to get in the ship. So they, once they're in the ship, is in the perfect will of God, the perfect will of Jesus. They're doing exactly what Jesus had constrained them, commanded them to do. And then it says, and when he sent the multitude away, he went up into the mountain to pray. It said, and when evening was come, so hold on. When he sends them away, it's in the late afternoon, let's say around about 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And then it says when evening was come, he was there alone. So now it's evening time, let's say approximately 6 o'clock. So now the ship at this point was in the midst of the sea and was tossed with waves, and the wind was contrary. So hold up. They're in the perfect will of God. They're in the perfect will of Jesus, and yet they're still in a storm. I want you to understand, I need you to understand that you can be in the perfect will of Jesus, you can be in the perfect will of God, and you'll still find yourself in the midst of a storm. Don't be surprised. God already knew. Jesus already knew. It's not a surprise to him. As a matter of fact, Jesus says that there will be trouble in this world. Don't give up. Don't quit. Jesus is aware of your situation. But here's another thing that's kind of difficult to understand. As we read in verse 24, it says, but the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, and the wind was contrary. But then in verse 25 it says, and in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went unto them walking on the sea. Now, most theologians believe or agree that the fourth watch is approximately between 4 and 6 in the morning. So he sends them out in the boat in the late afternoon. He's alone by himself in the evening, and the boat begins to be tossed about. he doesn't go to them until the fourth watch. The fourth watch is actually approximately 6 to 7 hours from whence he was alone praying. So he has allowed them to be in that storm for approximately 6 hours. That lets us know that sometimes, even when we're in the perfect will of God, even when we're in the perfect will of Jesus, we'll not only find ourselves in a storm, but Jesus won't necessarily come right away to rescue us. Sometimes he'll let us go through the storm. And sometimes that's hard to understand. It's hard to understand because when we believe, call on Jesus and he'll be there right away. But no, our timing is not the same as God's timing. His timing has a purpose to it, and sometimes he will allow us to go through some storms so that we can be stronger and better on the other side. So my friends, life tip number 1 is you can be in the will of God and still find yourself in a storm. Life tip number 2 is Jesus doesn't always come right away. But the old folks used to say, he may not come early, but he's always on time. But the time that he sees to be on time is his time, not our time. So we just have to trust, and wait on the Lord, and know that even in the midst of our storms, he's with us all the way.